Hello and welcome, friends. This is the series on Julius Caesar, one of the very famous Shakespearean tragedy, as we all know. People call it historical tragedy as well, but we'll mind calling it what Shakespeare called it and what historicists and literature people call it. That is a tragedy. Julius Caesar, the tragedy. We are on Act 5th and we're doing the second part of Act 5th, that is scene 3rd and 5th. 3rd to 5th, we have already done the first and the second scene of this act. This lesson is presented by me, Palak Sharma. Few things about me, you can always read it over here. I am an economics honors student, a poet at heart, a theatre geek, a mixture of Keats and Shakespeare. And once you are done watching this lesson, do not forget the 3 R's and the S. Rate, review, recommend, and share the lesson. Let the light shine more and more, and it's always good, the more the merrier, they say. And you can also follow me here on Unacademy. Here's my URL. So we'll now proceed to scene 3rd of Act 5th. Now Cassius is upset because he's afraid. His men are running away from the field of battle. They know that they are losing, so they are running in order to save their own lives instead of owing an allegiance to their troop leader, that is Cassius. They are running away from the battlefield. So Cassius tells Titinius that he personally killed his standard bearer, the one who is standing with him, who was trying to run away, and he took up the banner with him, which was with the standard bearer. He took that banner himself. Cassius took it. So Titinius informs him that Brutus gave the word too early, and that his soldiers quickly started looting the enemy camp once they captured it. So in the meantime, what happened is Antony's army has been able to surround Cassius. So what the scene was going on was, here was the army of, there was one side which was the army of Octavius, and one side the army of Cassius. So Cassius's army came and replaced the Octavius's army. They tried fighting it, but instead of fighting them, they started looting them. They started looting the enemy camp, that is Octavius's camp. So in the meantime, Antony came from somewhere, and what he did was, he tried surrounding Cassius's army. So in the meantime, when Cassius's army was looting Octavius's army, what happened was, I'll repeat again, Antony came and surrounded Cassius's army. That's it. So this is what is happening right now. So now Pindarus arrives, and he's also one of the conspirators. So he comes and tells Cassius to run further away if he wants to save his own life. So he informs his general, Cassius, that the tents have been taken. Their own tents, the enemy camp, the conspirators' tents have been taken, and they are being burning in the distance. So Cassius now sends Titinius to check on some soldiers and find out that if they are his men or not. And simultaneously he sends Pindarus up to a hill to watch and see that what happens. So Pindarus, what happens is he misinforms him, telling him that Titinius is captured and killed by the troops. So actually what was going on was, Pindarus was kept on the hill to keep a watch on what Titinius was doing, but he misinterprets things and he misinforms Cassius that Titinius is killed. So now what happens is that Cassius, he calls Pindarus now, and he says that he comes back down the hill, and what Cassius does is he hands him the sword, the bloody sword with which he stabbed Caesar. So he tells Pindarus that he takes the sword and stab Brutus with it. Now Pindarus, he obeys him and he kills Cassius on the spot. Cassius is dead, and Pindarus runs away right at that moment because he wants to shed off his own enigma of guilt. So this is symbolic that even the conspirators have started going against each other because they do not want to be a part of the conspiracy anymore. They've realized that this is not something which is a trifle. This is something against a very mighty power. This is against Caesar himself. So we cannot save ourselves from his wrath until and unless we decide to change our own sides, which they've already done by deceiving Cassius. What Pindarus does was actually deceiving Cassius. So it is this way that he changes his allegiance from the conspirators' side to Antony's side, or we can say Caesar's side. Because Titinius and Messala, Titinius was not actually killed. It was just a misinterpretation and misinformation. So Titinius and Messala, they return to where Cassius is lying, and Titinius has a wreath of laurels on his head. He is putting it on Cassius's head, a sign of victory, and now he's telling Messala that Brutus has defeated Octavius, but Antony has conquered Cassius's army. And then he sees Cassius on the floor. So he's very much disappointed, and he realizes that Cassius misunderstood what actually happened on the battlefield. So Tithonus is again a very sad person now. He's feeling broken. So Tithonus then sends Messala to Brutus and tell him that what has actually happened to Cassius. So he then turns to Cassius's body and says, "Alas, thou hast misconstrued everything." This is again a kind of a metaphor. Misconstrued everything. You have understood everything wrong because you even understood Caesar wrong. You thought he was ambitious wrongly. You never took into account his good intentions. So because you misunderstood everything, that is why you are dead right now. So Tithonus, he then picks up Cassius's sword and even kills himself. So we are seeing that it's not the army which is defeating everyone. It's their own guilt conscious, the enigma of their own guilt which is killing them. They are not being killed by someone else. It's their own death. It's their own calling. The guilt inside them which is pricking them and killing them one by one. Now Brutus arrives and sees the two dead bodies on the ground. So he remarks, he's now all surrendered to Julius Caesar, because last night he had seen the ghost, and now he knows that it is not a very trifle he's playing against. He's playing against Caesar the mighty. So he says, "O Julius Caesar, thou art mighty yet." This means that even if you are dead, Caesar, we know that you are a mighty person, and your might lives even after you are dead. You are mighty even now. This is again, we are seeing a symbolism that everyone is surrendering to Caesar now. Brutus, he quickly recovers from the loss of his confederate, and he immediately orders the soldiers to prepare for another battle. And this time they were going to fight against Antony himself, because they know it's not Octavius who is as harmful, it's Antony who is harmful to their army. It's Antony who is killing people without stabbing them. He's killing people with their own guilt consciences. So this is the act 3rd. And act 4th, what happens is, Brutus appears again. He's still leading the troops. He tells his men to continue fighting, and he leaves them in the midst of the battle. Now Cato valiantly fights but is killed. He's again one of the conspirators. Lucilius pretends to be Brutus and challenges the soldiers, but he's quickly captured. So the soldiers, what they do is, they captured the alibi Brutus, the Lucilius, who's actually Lucilius, and they bring him to Antony. They think that they have finally captured Brutus, so Antony arrives, and then he recognizes that it is Lucilius. It is not Brutus himself, so it's a wrong thing they've done. So he tells his soldiers that although they did not get Brutus, they still captured a noble man. So he orders his soldiers to continue fighting because they have not reached the pinnacle of their victory yet. So they keep on fighting more. So this is how scene 4th ends, act 5th, and then comes the scene 5th of act 5th. Now what happens is, Brutus arrives. He's accompanied by several stragglers from his defeated army. He first asks Clitus and then Dardanius to kill him so that he will not be captured. He doesn't want to surrender. So they both refuse. They both tell him that no, we're not going to do that. He then asks Volumnius to kill him as a friend. But Volumnius tells him that's not the office for a friend, my lord. This is not a job which a friend can do to you. A friend cannot kill you. So this is again a reminder to Brutus that you killed your friend, but not a good friend kills his own friend. You were a bad friend, that's why you killed Caesar. But I am a good friend, I'm not going to kill you. This is again reminding him of what the wrong he has already done. And at the sound of another call to battle, Brutus, he hastily gets up and he orders his men to flee ahead of him. He's now afraid that his men will die because of him. He keeps Strato with him, and when finally he convinces Strato to hold the sword while he impales himself on it. So this is how Brutus is going to die. Antony and Octavius, they arrive with their army, and they find that Brutus is dead on the ground and Strato is lying nearby. So Strato informs them how Brutus died, and Antony, he then states that this was the noblest Roman of them all. So this play, again, I'll say, it's not about Caesar, it's not about Antony, it's not about Cassius, it's not about Octavius. It is about Brutus. It is about how he transforms from a guy who's good, from a noble guy, to a guy who assists people in the conspiracy, and again to the guy who knows what he did wrong and dies in himself. No doubt Cassius died himself, no doubt all the other conspirators killed themselves, but not with the height of guilt with which Brutus killed, because they knew they had done wrong. And Brutus realized it at the end that he had actually done wrong by killing Caesar, and not just wrong to Caesar, but a wrong to whole Rome. Because when Caesar died, the whole Rome went into a chaos. And this was not because Caesar was a bad person, but because Caesar was a good guy. And because he died, Rome is in chaos. So this is something which Brutus realizes in the end, and Antony acknowledges it. He says that Brutus was the most noblest of them all. He says that of all the conspirators, only Brutus believed that he was killing Caesar to uphold the Roman Republic. The others who killed Caesar, they were simply jealous of power and they were hungry of power. So Antony continues saying that his life was gentle and the elements so mixed in him, the nature might stand up and say to all the world, this was a man. So he says that his life was such an exemplary example of a life that even nature would stand up in his allegiance and say that this was a man. Look, the world, this is a man. This is what a man constitutes of. So Octavius now orders his body to be placed in the tent, and he stops fighting. And the play ends with when Octavius says, so call the fields to rest and let's away to part the glories of this happy day. So he says that now the battlefield rest, and let's move away from this place and let's part and let's remember the glories of this happy day when we have won the war, we've killed all the conspirators. So now the play ends. We are done with all these acts and scenes. We're going to complete the analysis of this act in the next lesson. Till then, goodbye, and thank you so much for watching this lesson. Rate, review, recommend, and share this. Thank you.